Hi, my name is Joe Pass, and today I want to talk about building single lines on various chord changes, chord patterns, or maybe just individual chords. But before I start that, I'd like to, maybe you would like to tune up. So here's a note to tune up with. It's A. You can tune to any note. Usually I use a tuner to tune up with. I find that's the best way for me, or else I give my guitar to a friend and have them tune it. And then there are other ways of tuning, that is with harmonics. And then this way I really learned when I started. But anyway, you choose your own way. Before we go into building these single lines, I'd like to give you a little idea of how I look at chord changes. First of all, I look at chord changes as very basic. Major, minor, and dominant seventh are the only ways that I look at chord changes. I'm not interested too much in whether a chord is a C major, 9th, 11th. I just want to know if it's a C major or C minor or a C 7th. And in the dominant family, I include the diminished chord as a dominant 7th flat 9 chord, and I include the augmented chord as a dominant 7th raised 5th chord. So in the dominant family, the diminished and the augmented become dominants for me. I use them. I put a root on the chord and use them as dominants. So when you look at chords, the only thing you have to look at is the chord a major, minor, or a dominant. And so simplify your thinking, and thus you can build lines that are easier to picture or hear in your ear. When you're playing chords with all complicated intervals on them, or notes, like a C7 flat 9 raised 9 flat 5, that's too many numbers and too much to try to incorporate in your playing. Just want to know whether it's a C seventh or C minor or a C major. Before I finish this portion and we go on to tape some lines for you on these major, minor, and dominants, I'd like to talk a little bit about my right hand. I'm in this case using my fingers, and I play mostly with my fingers, and it's a good idea, as I have said before, to learn to play with your fingers, finger style. It's not hard to do. You just put your hand on the guitar and sit there and watch the television set for a while, and your fingers will fall the way they are most comfortable, which is not the classical way. They will fall for yourself the way they are most comfortable, and you use your fingers. You can play a lot, especially if you're playing solo guitar, you can play a lot more freer, a lot more counterpoint and so forth playing. And I don't have any particular set of fingers. I'm not playing like, I sometimes play one finger, twice, two fingers, whatever is most comfortable. I don't have any system, and you don't need a system. Only what works good for you. And I use a pick. The pick in this case, I use a very small pick, a half of a pick, and it's just a idiosyncrasy of mine. It's a habit, and I don't suggest that you use a small pick. I don't suggest you use a half a pick. I suggest you use a small pick, but not in this case this small. This is what I do. But I find it very difficult to use a pick that is large, because I think the closer you are to the strings, the better feeling you have for the instrument. So that's why classical players actually, I think, feel the instrument, because their hands are on the string. Anyway, the pick is... When I'm on a string, it's alternate. Down, up, down, up, down, up. When I change strings, it's down. Even though it should be alternate up and down, I don't do that, so I always pick down, even if I'm going back. If it's too down. Once in a while. Very seldom. So you find my playing has very little of... very little back picking. I think you get a lot of definition when you pick down. This is all, by the way, G7. This is G7th augmented. A lot of playing in this case, for me, I do a lot of pull-off, hammer, and slurs. I'm picking the note. If you want to practice it, you should practice like this. You have to strengthen this finger. I think the weakest finger for most players is this finger here. This. So. See, that's not picked. It's not... That's hammered. Okay, as I said, we would choose some chords, and I will play some lines on them. First, I'll start with just one basic change, and I'll keep everything in the key of C. And naturally, you know that if you play in another key, it's the very same principle, the very same idea. But key of C would be the easiest key to give examples in. So, for instance, if I have a C major chord, major 7th, but I call it C major. First of all, I use very little arpeggio, so you would hear very little of in my playing. Now, it's not that it's not done or it's not good, it's just that I don't do it. If I were to play a line in this, with these intervals in mind, C and B, I would play it this way. Starting on the root and ending on the major 7th. Very seldom do I play or. So, this is a line on C major 7th that just comes to my mind. And this line comes from here. Now, if you're going to play, you should also be able to play these lines in other places. So now, once again, here's C major 7th, and here's another line. In many instances, repeating a phrase an octave lower is done a lot, and it makes it for a longer line. In this case using the 11th, but it has to be pure. Now, once again. If you cannot repeat the line that you played, it is obviously not anything worth playing, because it means that it didn't come from your head, and it's not music. It's maybe a kind of a geometric movement, like some people will play 3 frets across, or things like that, which are exercises or movements, but they are not music. They are not, in a sense, your music, your identity. And the object of playing lines is to be able to have a kind of a style of playing or a identity to your playing, so that when someone hears you, they say, that's so-and-so, that's it. So if you can't repeat the line that you're playing, it means that it's not in your head. It's not in your head or your heart or somewhere, so it doesn't make any sense. So I will play a few more lines on C major 7th. Some very basic, I sometimes play Now, in that case, I played an arpeggio because the arpeggio is practically spelled out in the chord form that you're holding. Another line. Now, in this case, I am playing lines. When you have a one chord, which is now in this case a C major 7, when you have a one chord for a bar, you can always use the 5 chord as a movement. In this case, it's G7 flat 9. There it is. Raised 5th, flat 9. And I'm going to be assisted by my good friend Don Mock, who you won't be seeing because it's me. Go ahead. Okay, so we just left off talking about major chords, and I played some lines for you. Now, remember that there are just an infinite amount of lines that you could play. Every melody that you might learn that it could be applied to a major chord. Any melodies. So, melodies are important. So, as an aside, you might consider learning as many songs as you can. That is the melody content, the melody of the song. Not just the chord changes, but the actual melody. So now talk about minor. In this case, C minor. Once again, first I would consider the sound of the chord. Here's maybe a line on C minor. In that case, it's an arpeggio. The reason I'm holding this form is to show you that it comes out of there. I would normally not play with this grip, with this C minor chord. I would play. but I'm showing you that so you can see that most of the playing comes from one of those bar forms, and all the notes you're looking for are right next to one another, and the fingering is not very difficult. So. Sort of a hammer, or once again, I'm telling you that when you have a 1 chord, in this case C minor, you can always use the 5 chord to build the line on. See? There's another line on C minor. Once again. Now, that is an example I told you that lots of lines are played in 2 and 3 octaves. This one. Can't go any lower. So. Once that is a 3 octave line. So this is also a C minor kind of a line. I'll try to play some minor lines just off the top of my head. This would be all C minor. Straight arpeggio. So what you're hearing in this case of those lines is you're hearing me play the 1 chord, which is C minor, through the 5 chord, which is G7th, and usually I'm using augmented sounds because to me these sounds go together. If you examine chords, you'll see, in this case, C minor 9th is a B-flat triad, which means, to me, that I could play B-flat triads against a C minor chord. If you examine C minor 7th like this, it's an E-flat triad, which means that you could play certain lines on E-flat forms. Now, I know that modally you can do all these things and you understand them, but I'm talking about a lot about how the chord looks to you when you hold it, when you grip it, so you can see. A lot of playing is dictated a lot by forms that you play from. And in this case, the C minor here tells me that E-flat works, so that means that I could play this E-flat, this E-flat. So rather than have a lot of information that is theoretical, that works, but you're always thinking about what you're playing, it might be a good idea to observe a little bit what you're doing with your fingers and look at it like as if it were a puzzle that you were trying to figure out, where you could see that in this case a C minor has an E-flat triad, this has a B-flat triad, and various things like that, so that you can get a picture, because most of the notes you're looking for when you build lines are going to be inside those forms. inside those forms. And you can do away with having to consider whether you're playing a Mixolydian mode or whether this mode, because it's very important that if you're in the key of C minor, that anything you play should relate mentally and, that is, form-wise, to C minor, and not to some thought of a mode, I think, because the guitar dictates, is laid out in such a way that if I'm playing in C minor, I don't want to know that I can use a B-flat major scale against it, because if I have B-flat major in my head, I'm not actually hearing and seeing and feeling C minor. So I always work from the root of the chord, and anything else is built on top of it. And I always consider myself, in this case, C minor. I'm in C minor, and I don't want to know about what other mode fits on it. Now, we're talking about the dominant seventh chord, and that is a very important chord, and a lot of players don't get enough out of it. I think there's most of the tunes have dominant sevenths in them, especially standard jazz pieces. So in this case, we're talking about G7. And once again, I would think in terms of that is the complete sound of this chord. I don't look at that as a scale, though it is a scale, but to me it has this sound. And in this case, it's a G6-9 or a G13th or whatever. G7th is all I think about. It has this in it. So here's some lines on it. Something like that. Here's some more lines. In this case, you can always use the, let's see, this is a 5 chord, and this is a 2, I believe. And by the way, when I see chord changes that have this kind of a movement, I completely disregard the D minor 7th. It doesn't enter my thinking or my, it's superfluous to go and then think of D minor 7th and then play some kind of a G7th. Because if you play this, if you have this in mind, you have already included the sound that you need. The main sound between the minor 7th and the dominant 7th is this. That's it. So I would eliminate immediately if I saw chord changes that had, I would eliminate the minor 7 and go right for the dominant and play off the dominant. And you're free from trying to think in terms of 2 changes. You've broken it down to 1, and you'll have already included that minor 7th change. So here's some more lines on G7. It's all G7th. It's all G7th. One, two, 1, 2, 3. Now, if you have these kind of dominant 7th chords, which are flat 9, raise 9, flat 5, raise 5, then you have to alter your scale, and I'm talking about these chords. The only thing you can alter in a dominant 7th is the flat 9, raise 9, flat 5, raise 5. So you have this. I will hold the bar. Flat 9, raise 9, regular 3rd, raise 5, flat 5, raise 5, 7th, root. So if you have those kind of chords where you have the lines are different. everybody plays this. There are infinite amount of variations on that kind of a diminished. And like I said before, I include this chord, which is a diminished chord, with a root, as a dominant seventh chord. So I can play all these lines on this kind of a dominant seventh chord, a flat 9 chord. Diminish. In this case, D flat is the flat 5 of G7. So, and I'm now thinking also of D flat as a form. You can see so in this case I'm thinking of this. So here are some lines on altered dominant seventh chords. Okay. We're going to now play a 1-6-2-5 pattern for you so I can play some lines for you. And I will play my lines in the beginning straight eighth notes so you can see maybe how they go in from one change to another. Okay. Flat 5. This is D7. This is D minor 7 flat 9. This is G7. This is C. Remember, when you do 1, 6, 2, 5, you can make them dominants or minor 7s or raised 9s, flat 9s. They don't have to be just 1, 6, 2, 5 pure chords. You have to build your lines around. It's a good idea to play in straight eighth notes to see if you can connect your lines from one chord to another. These are all altered dominant 7th chords. This is E7th altered. It's E7th raised 9. So I'm playing a line on it, which is like this. Then the next one is A7th, which is altered in another way. It is a 6th chord with a flat 9. This is a flat 9. So I'm playing. Next one is a D7th raised 9 flat 5, or raised 5, and I'm playing. And then G, augmented, raised 9. So what we're doing is we're playing. It's the same principle as if we were staying on a G7th chord, only we're using E, A, D, G, which is a whole bunch of 2 5s. So what that is 2 5. E minor, A7, D minor, G7. Or E, A, D, G. Or B flat, A flat, G. It's either chromatic or flat 5. But the example we're trying to show is how to play on altered dominant chords, connecting them up. So now Don will play a little rhythm on that. 3, 4. 1 bar for each chord. 3, 4. And remember that if you can't hum the line and you can't repeat it, then it's probably not a good line, and it's probably not coming from your head, but it's coming from your fingers. So I hope you have fun with this tape, because I'm going to eat now. I'm hungry.